to analyse it. He has to make decisions. He's very bad at making decisions, but no, he's very good, really. I shouldn't say that. But he applies those same skills. So we are scientists. Fire officers are scientists. When they aim that hose at the fire, they aim it at the base of the fire, not at the top of the fire. And there are really good reasons in terms of spreading of fires as to why that works. So some of the problems that the world faces: overpopulation, climate change, growing enough food in that hostile climate to feed the population. So all of these questions will be answered by biology. So it's a really exciting time to be a biologist. Every scientist, as we've said, applies analytical skills, thinks critically, they solve problems, they communicate effectively, hopefully. So you are all inner scientists, whoever you are. My first experiment, I was 2 years old. My parents said, never play with matches. My mum left me in the charge of my elder brother, and I picked up the matches, I lit the match, and, it's quite pretty. What's all the fuss about? And it was fine, and then it got a bit hot. So I put it back in the box very quickly, because I'm a tidy girl. And whoosh, like that, fire. Dropped the box, set fire to the carpet. At which point, thankfully, my brother came in and saved both of us, although he wasn't saved from the wrath of my mother later on. But that was me, my inner scientist. My friend Mark, his mum said, don't eat the berries on that tree in the garden. He had a pet hamster. He was very well behaved. He didn't eat the berries on the tree in the garden. He gave them to his pet hamster. The hamster died, I'm sad to say. But that was his first experiment that he can remember. What was your first experiment that you can remember? You don't have to tell me now, but I may ask you later, or you're welcome to come and tell me later. But we all have that inner science. Biology is just a fascinating subject to study. It's a very broad-based discipline, and it's exciting. It's about life. How could it not be exciting? So our department covers all the aspects of biology, right from biomolecular interactions, little tiny molecules, up to whole environments, ecosystems, the world. We divide ourselves into 4 research groupings, and you can read about our research on the web pages. There's a link there. So in biomolecular interactions, we have Professor Nigel Robinson. Nigel is an expert on metals and biology and health. And you'll have come across this. If you've gone to buy a plaster in the chemist, you'll see sometimes you get elastoplast with silver built in. AIDS wound healing. Why? There's some really good science behind that. In our molecular plant sciences group, we have Professor Keith Lindsay. Keith is an expert on genetics and molecular biology, and he is looking at how we can produce plants to survive conditions like drought better. In the ecology, evolution and environment box, we have people who look at things like conservation. Professor Steve Lindsay, you may have seen on the BBC, not on the BBC, on things about COVID recently and sniffer dogs. Steve has retired recently, but he's a sort of modelling expert, and he's a world expert on malaria. So he helped write the World Health Organization strategy for dealing with malaria outbreaks based on his knowledge of biology and modelling and transmission. So we do research at this very high level across the breadth of biology. Animal cells and systems, if you go in the lab afterwards, you'll meet Dr. Vincent Crozet, ask him about his research. He looks at flies, and also we could use flies as models for things like human ageing. Paul Shazzo, if you live locally, you may have seen on the news in the last few months, he's been working on a project where they're developing like a dementia helmet, it's called, but it's like a visor, has flashing lights at different wavelengths, and it looks like it's been shown to delay the progression of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So really important research that we do. And what has it got to do with your degree? We do what's called research-led teaching. And we do that because it's exciting, but we also do it because we are a thriving research culture, and you will have the opportunity to join in our research. So the MBiol is our 4-year undergraduate integrated masters. The MSci is natural sciences, and then our BSc 3-year courses You will get to study research modules in projects, we get to work in our labs, literature reviews where we're looking at contemporary research literature, and workshops where we're using some of the really fancy equipment that we've got to answer research questions. Many of our postgraduate students were Durham undergraduates. We have the lovely Paula there, who will tell you about her research later, who's an undergraduate with us as well. And we also have lots of people in the lab, and you can regale them with tales of research later. We also allow students to work in the holidays in our labs. We have a departmental summer studentship scheme where we have some funding to pay students to work as like technicians in our labs in the summer. We also, if ever anyone wants to volunteer, because sadly we don't have enough money to pay every student, we will let students get work experience in our labs in the holidays too. So let's talk about our courses. We have a 3-year BSc Biological Sciences, and there you come in, start to study biology, you follow all these different themed routes that we're going to look at, and you will graduate with a degree 3 years later. Now, if you come in on that route and you decide you'd like to take a placement year and go and work for an employer for a year, we would transfer you at the end of second year when you've secured a job offer. Similarly, if you come in on the BSc and you think, actually, I'd like to study abroad, you can do a study abroad year, and we transfer you at the end of second year. So for both of those cases, you would get a BSc with placement year or a BSc with study year abroad in the title. A placement year sets you apart. It allows you to gain a whole year of work experience in the real world. I don't mean that in a bad way, but our placement students are just so effective. They go out, they get a job, perhaps someone like GSK, big biotech company, or a smaller biotech company like CRB is a local one down the road. And they have to be in there. You know, it's industry. You have to be in there. You have to work. They get paid while they're doing it. Placement year fees are only 20% of normal, so it's a bargain. I like a bargain. You get to meet new people. You come back a different person. We often talk about exit velocity. Students come in on the BSc, they study for 2 years, say they got 58% as a mark. If they go into their third year, they'll get 61. They have a little bit of exit velocity. Their marks go up by 2 or 3%. Those students who've done a placement, their average increase in between the end of second year and the end of their final year is 7.5%. So that's the added value of a placement, both in sort of intellectual academic terms as well as in employability. Our placement students have a 100% graduate employment rate. So apart from those different BSc routes, we offer a 4-year undergraduate integrated master's known as an MBiol. Now, it's not the same as an MSc. An MSc is a postgraduate master's, which is a whole year, literally 52 weeks. An MBiol is a 4-year course where you study the same first 3 years of BSc as everyone else. You don't get a degree at the end of third year. You keep going into fourth year. You do a huge project, and you will get a degree called MBiol, Masters of Bioscience. And you can apply to come in directly on your UCAS form, that's called C107, or when we get to the end of second year, there's often a little bit of kind of traffic and moving around. So we have people who've come on the BSc who say, I want to do a placement, I want to do a year abroad. So once they've got an offer, we will move them onto those routes. If people say, I'm a BSc person, but I want to do an MBiol, up to the limit of places that we have available, we allow students transfer. A study year abroad for us in biology is an additional year. It's not a replacement year. So it's a bit like a placement, but instead of working for a year, you go to another university, you study some science modules, and then you come back and finish off your degree with us. It allows you to gain a certificate from the other university, which will say these are the modules I've studied, but it also allows you to broaden your experience. So we had a girl who was always interested in marine biology. She went to Canada. She was able to do modules of marine biology. We don't have a module of marine biology. She was a fantastic French horn player. She also did music. She was able to do a language. She had a great time. And of course, it looks good on your CV. She, like one day she was in Durham, next day she was in Canada. And then she came back and she'd done all of this stuff. So employers like that. It sets you apart. And she gained real in-depth knowledge of an area of biology in addition to what she learned with us. So we have a new degree for 2023, the BSc in Biochemistry. So for this you would come into the biochemistry degree route, but there is a bit of flexibility such that at the end of first year, if you decided you wanted to be a biologist, it would be possible to ask if you could transfer. So we have these different routes on offer. Within any class, we also have natural science students. Now, natural science students are scientists who take modules with us in biology and other departments. If they do a really specific, what we call joint honours programme, where there is little choice in those modules, they can do that as a dual specialism in biology and chemistry or biology and physics. If they don't want to do that and they just want to do biology, geography and anthropology because those are subjects they like, then students can do that. Professor James Blowy is the Director of Education for Natural Sciences. He'll be giving talks today, and also there's lots of information on the web pages. So I'm not going to say anything else about natural sciences except to say that we love having natural science students in with biologists in our modules. Everyone is our students as far as we're concerned, and it's really interesting sometimes in tutorials when you've got someone who perhaps is doing a joint honours in biology and physics, and you're talking about how the eye works or how the ear works, because you get that extra physics perspective coming in. So we really like having natural science students study with us. This tells you about the structure of our course. So each year we have 120 credits, and we in our department run 6 20-credit modules per year. Those modules will have a mixture of lectures in a room like this, practicals in a lab like the one you'll see afterwards, tutorials, which are small group classroom teaching, maybe with 6 to 10 students and a tutor, and seminars, which sometimes are expert guest lecturers from other universities who come in and give us a research talk. Sometimes it's us and it's more sort of interactive than a lecture. And other times we do a flipped classroom where we get to sit down and the students do the presenting, and I really like those. Not because I get to sit down, just because it's really interesting to see the students take on information. They're really good. We assess by all the sort of things you're expecting. So exams, essays, lab write-ups, presentations, project reports. We have a sort of variability in our assessments. So sometimes there's a specific remit, like write a bulletin for this journal. So it's not quite so predictive as you might think from that list. There is an opportunity at the end of level 2 to transfer, as I've mentioned, onto the placement or year abroad routes, or potentially to switch onto the MBiol, or to switch off the MBiol onto a placement route if you've secured a job offer. You can't do an MBiol and a placement, or an MBiol and a year abroad. You can only do 4 years with us. In level 1, all students take an optional module of our biologists, which can be from another department, and it allows you to perhaps continue something you were interested in at A level, or to take up something new. Just gives you a bit of variety in your first year. In terms of a timetable, a typical week in first year would be 1 practical from one of your modules, 2 hours of lectures for each of your modules, so 12 hours in total, 1 tutorial from one of your modules, so that's about 18 hours of contact time. And then you put in some reading time, so this is extra time. So like you come for a lecture with me, or I will talk about something for an hour, and then you go home and you do, according to this slide, 1.5 hours reading. According to reality, half an hour. That's only because I'm in the room. If I wasn't in the room, you'd probably say 5 minutes. It's one of those things where, obviously, when students are preparing assessments, you don't perhaps see that as reading time, but that's where some of the extra time comes in. And if you use your time wisely, so if you've got 4 lectures and you've got hours gaps in between, go to the library, just work effectively, and you can easily fit in to study 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and then have the evenings free for all the different societies and college fun, or working if you, some of our students have part-time jobs. So, a long time ago we had 7 different degrees. So we had a degree called Cell Biology, Ecology and Evolution, Molecular Biology and Biochemistry, Biomedical Sciences, Straight Biology. So we had all these different titles. And we, probably 2013-ish, we changed the degrees to this broad-based BSc in Biological Sciences and, of course, the MBiol. And we did that because it allows students to take modules, make informed choices when they're here of what sort of biologists they are, what they'd like to study. So they build their own adventure, and we'll look at a module map in a minute. But also, just as importantly, it gives them the greatest probability and flexibility of, in terms of being successful when they apply for careers or other things afterwards. So I didn't do my degree in Durham. Durham was my insurance choice, so I have a degree certificate that says Biological Sciences. My friend Nick did his degree in biology. He has, well, in Biosciences in Durham, but his degree title says Zoology. If we saw an advert that came up for research, plant biologists, come and invent a new pesticide, I could apply for that with my degree in Biological Sciences, even though I haven't looked at a plant since well back in the last century. But it doesn't matter, because I've got this very broad-based degree title, and I would probably get through that first sift by HR. When they got Nick's application form and it says BSc Zoology, they would say, oh, that's no good, he only knows about animals, and he would not get shortlisted. So by having this broad-based degree called Biological Sciences or Biosciences, it gives our students really good career potential. But in terms of specialisation, they can choose the modules they like. So when you leave, you get your degree certificate, but you also get a transcript. So if you were applying for the same job in plant research, you could say, I've got a BSc in Biological Sciences at Durham University, and I specialise in genetics and environment, ecology, plant biology type modules. And you'd show them your transcript, which would say things like plant and algal physiology, crops for the future. So the evidence is on there. So that's why we don't have lots of different degree titles. And it does mean you have that flexibility. So in first year, all our biology students, our MBiol students, take these 5 dark blue modules, and they go for the breadth of biology. Everyone's come from different places, A-levels, different entry qualifications, different curricula in terms of which exam board you've used. So in first year, we want everyone to get sort of up to speed, same place, so that second year onwards, we're all on that same level playing field. So molecules and cells literally goes from molecules upwards. Genetics, genes, organisms and the environment, ecosystems. So we're getting that whole breadth of biology. Fundamentals of Bioscience Research is a support module, and it gives you the relevant study skills. Everyone then has their option. So for that open module, you could do Molecules in Action, which is a module offered by the chemistry department. Anthropology, something or other. Philosophy, economics, French, Italian, anything, business, economics. So as long as you meet any entrance requirements, like geography sometimes say you have to have an A-level in geography, you can do whatever you like for that open module. You can take up a new language, you can continue an existing one. Now once you get into second year, you have to do 6 modules with us, so everyone does research skills, and then they get to pick 5 others. And when they get into third year, our biologists will do the 3 compulsory modules and then 3 others from those on offer. These sideways words give you a rough idea of the sort of material that's in these modules, but you don't have to follow a particular theme. You really do build your own adventure. The second year modules lead on to these third ones, that's what the arrows are saying, but you can follow your own adventure through. So if you are interested in sort of biomedicine, then physiology is a must, really, because that's all about how we work and how we go wrong as wonderful human animals that we are. Microbiology is good because we learn about bacteria and things like that. Immune systems, we talk about the immune response. You might want to do metabolism. We would look at things like diabetes and insulin resistance. You might want to do cell biology, which would be a good introduction to cancer biology, molecular biology, thinking about genetics and genomic medicine. So many of these are still relevant to biomedical sciences. You might want to do ecology, like Steve, think about how does malaria, how can we control it, how does that spread. Then in third year you get to do 3 others, and it really is your choice. We say that if you want to do stem cells, you need to have studied development. So you don't have to decide that when you come. First year is broad. So we say to students, come in first year, keep an open mind, study your modules of choice, see what kind of flavour of biologist you are as you get to second year, make your choices, and they'll follow on to third year. And even if they don't, if you're missing something, we can do things called registration concessions. So there's a lot of flexibility. You have a meeting with your academic advisor, who's like a personal tutor, at the end of first year to discuss module choices. So there's help and support in choosing modules. Now in final year, you do your 3, we call these taught modules, so they follow on from your second year modules. And then we have compulsory modules. So you will do a field course or a workshop. If you've done ecology, evolution, conservation type, if you're that sort of biologist, you could do a field work, which is a field course, 2 weeks, field-based, intensive work out in the field somewhere. So this year we've got South Africa, Kenya and Scotland. So if you go to Scotland, it's about water and fish and it's cold. If you go to Africa, it's much warmer and it's all about sort of conservation. And has anyone done a...
No, I have friends that are doing the field course and I think they're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and where are they going?
Kenya and South Africa.
Right, yeah. And we're hoping to introduce one in the neotropics maybe in the future. So lots of choice for that particular sort of biologist. If you are more of a cell biologist, a molecular biologist, a biomedical scientist, then where it says workshop, we run different workshops. So we have a bioimaging workshop where you get to go and use our really fancy microscopes and get to see the electron microscope in action and literally bioimaging like it sounds. We have a systems biology workshop, which is computer-based, so you could do modelling and look at things like public health or, just model data. We have a physiology workshop, which is about the gut microbiome, friendly, not so friendly bacteria and ageing. We have genes and diversity, which is a bit of evolution and genetics, and there is some elements of field work in that. You get to go out and collect samples and bring them back to the lab. And microbiology, so we have different versions of workshops. So you take one of those according to your interests. You do a literature review. So this is like writing a review paper, an article that would be published. And you go away and you take a topic in contemporary research and you research that and then you write a review about it. And so you could say, will stem cells ever cure type 1 diabetes? That would be a good review topic. And so you would go away and you'd have to write about diabetes, you'd have to find out about current treatments, you'd have to find out how far we are with things like stem cells and how could we make them resistant to autoimmune attack if we could use them as a therapy. So you literally do an awful lot of research over 2 terms and then you write that review paper. You have a supervisor, you work one-on-one with an academic to do that. For our research module, we run different types. So we recognise not everyone wants to work in a lab. So some of our students will work in lab-based projects, put that coat back on, get back in the lab, do a series of experiments. Others will do biology enterprise. It's like biology, Dragon's Den, it's brilliant. And so they'll work as a group to come up with a new product. And then they will pitch that idea to local business people who come in. And then as an individual student, each one writes the science case. So what's the science behind the idea? But as a group, they do things like, how can we market it? It's a really good module, it's really fun, and it's a bit unique. And we've had some great success stories from it. So we had 2 boys a couple of years ago, 3, 4 years ago, did biology enterprise. They came up with a product. It's something to do with enzymes eating plastics in the sea, but I don't know enough about it. They applied when they graduated to get a kind of business grant to develop their product. They were given £250,000 to develop that product. Within 2 years, their company was turning over £1 to £2 million a year. So, wow, success story. And so that reflects the absolute amazing students that we have, but also how that module of biology enterprise, the enterprise element, they've really taken that to heart in a biological setting. CIB is contemporary issues in the biosciences. Within that, we work as a group, and it's a library-based project. Biology into schools is like it sounds. So it's a sort of education communication project. So a student devises a series of educational experiments, takes them to a local school, does a school placement and delivers them. In a wonderful Shakespearean subplot, they analyse how well their educational resource, scientific resource, worked in an educational pedagogical setting. And we had a boy called Ed who did this, and he came back and he said, wow, I want to do teaching, that's it. And he got a junior master's post at Harrow immediately when he graduated, based on the project that he'd done for his Biology into Schools module. So we have some really interesting versions of projects that are open to students. These couple of maps just demonstrate how you can follow themes through, so you don't need to worry about those now, but they're highlighting modules where relevant material is covered. If you do an MBiol, you do the first 3 years like everyone else, but then you stay on for a fourth year, you do a huge 80 out of 120 credits R project, you do another field course or workshop to gain more relevant skills, and you do a research skills module which will help support you as you come to write that big dissertation. Our MBiol students often go on and do a PhD when they've finished. They work in our research lab, so again they're working one-on-one with their supervisor, and often after they've left, their supervisor will end up publishing data that they've collected, in which case they often end up as a second author on that paper, so you might even get a publication out of that. Starting in October, we have the new BSc in biochemistry, and you'll see there's a lot more dark blue. So it's very similar to, it encompasses many of the modules, certainly at second year, that we offer to the biologists, but we insist that you do certain combinations, so we know that you've got a lot of biochemistry. There is a big difference in first year because you do 2 modules which are hardcore chemistry delivered by the chemistry department down the hill, so they're doing that for us, but it will give you a very strong biochemistry background. You then would do these 5 modules at second year. We still let students pick an option just so that they can have that interest reflected in their degree. And then they have to do these 5 modules at third year, and again they still have an option. The projects are much more specific if you do a biochemistry degree. So you would do a lab-based project in biochemistry, an area of biochemistry, or you do biology enterprise in a biochemistry area. And similarly, your literature review would be in a biochemistry area, and there would only be one workshop choice, which would be the biomolecular analysis workshop. So we're very excited about our new biochemistry degree. Why come to Durham? Well, we encourage our students to engage with lots of opportunities. We have amazing students, look at them. It's an absolute joy to work here with such amazing people, and we have a lot of fun. So we have a BioSoc, Biosciences Society. There are college societies, college teams, things you can get involved with. In the department, we have research seminars with expert guest speakers. I've already mentioned summer studentships. This is the Great Biosciences Bake Off. I love it. I'm the judge. I get to eat cake and get paid for it. This is an orange marmalade flavoured Nautilus laced with Cointreau. So cakes have to be suitably moist, flavoursome, crumbly, whatever, but biologically accurate. And it's a fun thing that we do each year. One of the things I particularly like about working here is I do get to know these amazing students that we have. So this is a picture of Angerid, who came third in the European Curling Championships a few years ago. She was able to keep her sport going. We have expert training coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, training coaches for our sports scholars, and she went on to train for the Olympic team. This is the World Solar Challenge. Eleanor came bouncing into my office one day, said, I need 2 weeks off. I was going, what? Term time? And she said, we're through to the national final of the World Solar Challenge. So the World Solar Challenge is a team from anywhere. It can be from a business, doesn't have to be from a university. They build a solar-powered vehicle around the world. The top 12 teams are then selected to go through to the final. That's top 12 teams from across the world. And our team from Durham University got through, amazingly. So they went to Australia. They spent 2 weeks racing around the outback. Imagine having that on your CV. I took part in the World Solar Challenge. Just sets you apart. And what fun to have, too. Why else come to Durham? We have field trips. I've mentioned the residential field courses. We also have a 3-day field course in second year and the odd day trip. We've already said you can switch between placement and study abroad years, and you have a personal tutor who's your academic advisor. Another good reason to come to Durham, we are 5th in Biosciences for careers in the UK. We are 6th as an institution in the UK. We are always in the top 6. In 2019, we have the statistics there. The average starting salary in 2019 was £28,000. That's now over £30,000 for our graduate, which is a very good start. We support our students both within, we have a wonderful central careers service who help look for jobs and applications and interviews and all of that. We also have support within the department. We encourage students to gain work experience wherever they can, even if it's working in Sainsbury's. You know, that's really good team building, transferable skills. And we encourage them to reflect that on their CV. Here is a list of some of the places where our students have gone to work. So a third will go on and do an MSc, postgraduate masters or a PhD. Quite a lot will go straight into the workplace and work in industry as scientists. Some will go into finance, commerce or management, or maybe they'll do a 1-year law conversion, or they'll do a 1-year postgraduate certificate of education, or maybe they'll do teach first and train to be teachers on literally while they are working. Some go into broadcast and print media. We have many who've gone into things like editing. We have a graduate called Thomas, who's a wildlife editor in the BBC. Graduate entry medicine, scientist training programme. If you're interested in that, talk to me afterwards. I'll be in the reception area. But basically every year about 8 of our students apply to do fast track medicine when they're finished, which is graduate entry only. And the majority of them will get offers and go off to be doctors. And sorry if anyone's a doctor in the audience, but what better sort of doctor can you be than someone who's spent 3 years learning about the biology of disease first? So, you know, I used to teach on our medicine programme, so I'm allowed to say that. But it's a wonderful opportunity. We get a lot of people who come and they don't know they want to do medicine, and then they get to final year and they say, I really want to do this, and they are so sort of committed and determined, and they do make fantastic doctors. What do you need to do to join us? Well, we'd like you to have 3 A's at A-level, which must include 2 sciences, one of which must be biology or chemistry or human biology, to do our biology routes, that is. Maths, geography, psychology, physics, obviously, they all count as second sciences. So you could come with biology, maths and history, perfectly fine. 37 points at IB, and we take 185 people overall, and that includes the BSc Biochemistry. So we have about 40 places on biochemistry and 145-ish on our BSc and biology routes. Typical offer for biochemistry is still 3 A's at A-level, but you have to have chemistry and maths, and that is reflected in the requirements for those 2 chemistry modules in first year. If you're interested in natural sciences, James Blowy is the go-to person. He's the director for them, but it's A star, AA at A-level or 38 points at IB. What do we consider? We look at your UCAS form. We consider your personal statement, your teacher's academic reference. We look for contextual evidence of merit and potential. That's not something that you can necessarily write down. It's things like where you come from, what school you go to. Do write down if you have excellence in sport and music. That's something we look out for. What we really want to see is we want to know that we're making offers to people who would fit well in our academic community. So we want to see that motivation for the degree programme. And it doesn't matter if you're particularly interested in an area. You know, you can say, wow, I love ecology. That's fine. We know ecology is part of biology. So one thing you can do if you read a UCAS form is you can pick up that sincerity. So we're looking for, real evidence that you want to do biology. So there's another session somewhere run by our admissions team, and there's a study at Durham Ask Us tab, which will be on information that you've received where you can direct questions. We used to make people offers for a college before they came to Durham, which is a bit silly because not everyone who got an offer to come to us came to us. So now we do it after you've accepted your offer, usually in May. And we ask you to rank colleges in order of your preference. The best college of all is Chats. Or
It's definitely Josephine Butler.
It's 100% Grey College.
Absolutely not. It's Collingwood.
so the good news is we all think our colleges are the best. So that means all the colleges are doing their jobs properly. Ask us about our colleges later. And there's a college to suit everyone. I love Chats because it's small. We have kind of links. We've got a lovely chapel in the grounds. I gate crash evensong. Sometimes I just put my gown on and sneak in with the choir. No one's worked out I'm there yet. But you know there are special things. Special thing about your college. Tell us.
My college is a super green college, so we're literally next to the botanical gardens, and it's a very green, lovely setting to be in.
My college has a really nice lawn. I don't know if any of you walked past up this massive green lawn on the way here, but now that the weather's nice, you see students out just enjoying the sun, sitting at the tables, having a pint in the evenings. It's very nice.
I like that my college is massive, so I get to meet loads of different people, and then tends to be relatively sporty. So we have like our own crumb and like a theatre and recording studio, so it's really nice in there.
And sometimes people pick a college because it's here, it's at the top of the hill, so it's easy to walk into the department. Sometimes people will pick a college, they say, I prefer to be in one nearer the town, so yes, I can walk into the department, but if I'm going for a night out, it's just a sort of quick walk back. We all think our colleges are the best. So colleges are amazing. They are responsible for our fantastic student retention rate. Durham University has the lowest dropout rate of students in the northeast, and in the north, full stop, and one of the lowest dropout rates in the UK. And that's because we get lovely students who come and fit in with our academic community. They all look after each other. I will also look after people within our department. I don't randomly go and hug students. I wait for them to ask me. And yes, we know that. Not till you graduate, then I may randomly hug you. And we have all the support in the colleges. We have a counselling service. We have disability support office. So we really look after our students very well. And we all get to know each other, which is very useful too. You're not just like a nameless face in a sea of people within a classroom. Thank you for joining us. That's the Ask Us tab.